Very unfortunate news coming early this morning. At least 12 people have been killed. Several others have been injured after a stampede that broke out at the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine in Jammu and Kashmir's Reasi district. The injured were taken to Narayana Hospital. Jammu and Kashmir DGP Dilbagh Singh has said this incident has occurred at around 2:45 a.m. as per initial reports. In fact, what's said is that an argument broke out owing to overwhelming crowds that were entering the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine. People were pushing, pulling, following a stampede that's now killed 12 people. At least 13 have been injured. Authorities have said that police has launched a rescue operation to evacuate people and that post-mortem is also being conducted. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed his condolences to the bereaved families, assured all possible medical assistance, and the rescue evacuation efforts are still underway to those who may be stranded inside. But briefly, the yatra was suspended. It's now resumed. The Prime Minister has also announced Ex-Gratia of 2 lakh rupees each to the next of kin and those who have lost their lives in the stampede, while 50,000 granted to the injured.
जो इंजर्ड हैं अभी तक उनको डायरेक्ट श्राइन बोर्ड की तरफ से नारायणा में उनको ज़ेरे इलाज किया गया है। तो एग्जैक्ट नंबर उनका भी अभी मेरे पास नहीं है कि कितने इंजर्ड हैं उसमें, लेकिन श्राइन बोर्ड ने रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चला के तो उनको सबों को शिफ्ट कर दिया है नारायण हॉस्पिटल।
Yeah, you're right. It was around 2 o'clock or 2:30 this morning. There were some youngsters standing at gate number 3. And they were discussing something amongst themselves. I can't say for sure that it was an argument or otherwise, but somehow in the course of their discussion amongst themselves, one of them got pushed. And then in the panic that ensued, they started running here and there. The crowd was so heavy, so thickly packed. In the process, the others got collaterally pushed. And in the confusion, the panic that ensued, they started running helter-skelter without actually knowing what had actually happened. So it tracked down, and that's how it happened. The reassuring part of it, out of this entire tragedy, is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is himself, right from the beginning, keeping a track, speaking personally to all the functionaries there, all the officers, the Lieutenant Governor, and trying to provide all kind of assistance and personally not only expressing concern but also advising what the kind of support that is to be provided.
संभावना तो रहती है 9 वर्ष पर निश्चित रूप से जो अभी तक देखा गया था, और प्रशासन उस प्रकार की व्यवस्था में लगी हुई भी थी और नीचे से भीड़ को नियंत्रित करके ही भेजा जा रहा था। लेकिन गेट नंबर 3 के पास ज्यादा ही भीड़ इकट्ठी हो गई, क्योंकि नीचे से लोग आते जहां से दर्शन के लिए पंक्ति बनता है, गेट नंबर 3 के तरफ से लोग जाते हैं और निश्चित रूप से ज्यादा ही भीड़ हो गई थी। कोई डिस्टेंस मेंटेन करना चाहिए थी, वो हो नहीं पाया ज्यादा भीड़। और वहाँ की जो स्थिति है, प्रशासन निश्चित रूप से वहाँ इस चीज को नियंत्रित रखता है, लेकिन ढलान और अनबैलेंस और ज्यादा भीड़, आप यहाँ कहीं दो मत नहीं कि भीड़ ज्यादा इकट्ठी हो गई थी और यह भीड़ इतनी इकट्ठी नहीं होनी चाहिए थी। इस प्रकार से एक घटना तो बहुत दुखद है।
See, last night at around 2:30 a.m. an incident of stampede took place near gate number 3 of Mata Vaishno Devi. There is a clock room adjacent to the place where people keep their personal belongings before they go for darshan. And queues are made for proceeding further to the shrine for darshan. That is the place where this incident started. During the incident, quite a good number of people were injured. Police, CRP and Mata Vaishno Devi security staff, civil staff, everybody came to the rescue. They were very quickly evacuated to hospital at Katra, Narayana Hospital.
All right, there you have it. Authorities there saying that there was overwhelming crowds, owing to which there was a lot of confusion that took place. In fact, we heard the devotees also speak at the same time, who said that many authorities refused to check the passes. There wasn't proper security arrangements, knowing very well that there could be a large number of people who could gather, considering the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine is really popular around the New Year's Eve, where people want to kickstart the New Year's while they pay their respects. The first day of the year, many of them post the strike of 12 have managed to reach the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine only to pay their respects. But it appears that the crowds were so large, eventually resulted to hectic confusion, a push and pull, and eventually a stampede that killed 12 people. All right, I'm going to quickly take you through what we know of the stampede that took place at the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine, right at the Bhavan. Mata Vaishno Devi Bhavan is where the stampede has taken place. It happened at 2:45 a.m. early this morning. We're also looking at arguments as the reason that eventually led to people pushing and pulling each other. And here, what we hear from devotees as well, that many of them wanted to enter, did not have a legit pass, and were still allowed to enter. And that resulted in people arguing with each other and then eventually pushing them, which led to 12 people who died in that stampede. There's a heavy rush that was reported at that Mata Vaishno Devi Bhavan, which has eventually triggered this stampede, from what we know. And 12 people have been killed, 13 people have been injured. Most of those injured have been now taken to the Narayana hospital, as we hear from authorities. And so far, Ex-Gratia has been given to the kin of those who have died, 2 lakhs to those, the family of those who have died, and also 50,000 to those who have been injured. Well, here's the breakup for you: 2 lakh for the kin of those injured, and of course 50,000 to those. We're looking at a high-level inquiry also that's now been ordered into this case here. Let me quickly cut across to Pooja Shali joining us on the phone line. Pooja, take us through exactly what preparations are being made to ensure that the yatra continues smoothly now, considering there are loads of people who are still present there who want to carry out that yatra. It was highly unfortunate because we hear devotees complaining that authorities barely checked their passes. Many of them who bought their passes were not even checked. They were allowed to enter despite overwhelming crowds while amid the COVID pandemic looming large.
Well, absolutely, Nabila. It was an absolute horror that has emerged. The visuals that have been coming from Vaishno Devi Bhavan, which is near the shrine where this incident has taken place, the stampede, leading to deaths as well. The crowd was so massive. So why were initial precautions not taken? What went wrong? Because there is some sort of references coming in from police personnel deployed that there could have been an argument that led to further stampede, and that is why a high-level inquiry has been ordered, and it will be headed by Principal Secretary to Government, Home Department. There are other members also, including Divisional Commissioner Jammu, ADGP Jammu. So, of course, a high-level inquiry has already been announced. Also, an ex-gratia of 2 lakh will be given to the kin of those who lost their life, an ex-gratia of 10 lakh for the next of kin who died in the stampede. There, of course, treatment also will be done. All of this, the injuries are already injured, are being rushed to the hospital nearby. But, of course, while the condolences have poured in from the Prime Minister, Home Minister, the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, an absolute terrible early morning. So what exactly happens, telling you here at that Bhavan, Nabila, at that point, early in the morning, the gates usually open for early morning prayers at the shrine in Vaishno Devi. And therefore, at that point, it appears just before that something has happened, because the visuals show that the Bhavan and nearby areas absolutely chock-a-block. Why was the number not restricted when all state governments are already have given advisories over crowds? And even Kashmir is usually a very popular tourist spot. So, of course, is Jammu's Vaishno Devi. So what exactly happened and why was that initial precaution not taken? That will also now be inquired on. But sadly, the deaths have been confirmed. Some bodies have been identified while others are still being identified. But since morning, I can tell you that constant updates coming in and condolences pouring in from all sides of politicians, of parties. But a very tragic morning at Mata Vaishno Devi shrine.
Pooja, it all comes down to who's taking responsibility for this tragic incident. Now we know the devotees who India Today spoke to on ground there, shifting the blame on authorities who they believe allowed hordes of people to enter without checking their passes. In fact, the people there claim that they bought passes but they weren't checked at checkpoints. People without passes were allowed inside. Wasn't there a limit that was imposed, a restriction as such, considering the COVID threat that's looming large? Wasn't there any ban or restriction on overwhelming crowds? Wasn't there a number set to ensure that they stick with that limit? Considering we know that New Year's will attract hordes of devotees, large numbers, it was what is expected. But clearly that level of security was not in place.
So correct, Nabila. So officially it appears that for the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine in Jammu region, there was not a specific advisory that had come. But of course, going by how all state governments were restricting crowd, and J&K is usually a popular tourist spot, this should have been immediately taken into consideration. So I have not been able to come across an official advisory for specifically Mata Vaishno Devi shrine, but definitely from the visuals it is clear that the number was much, much more than the official count that is usually allowed and permitted at this point. Because it appears there were thousands of people. How were they all allowed? Did they all have a proper pass? And you're correct, the allegation that's coming in is exactly what some of the devotees are saying. Because it's not very easy to reach the Vaishno Devi shrine. There are a lot of checks and balances that are done. There are passes for accommodation. That accommodation also takes different approvals from area. There are tickets that are checked. Remember, at this point, these devotees are usually families. So there are a lot of children. There are a lot of women, young men who are a part of this devotee crowd. So from the count that is coming in, which is, of course, over 10 for now confirmed, and the bodies are also starting to be identified, it is feared that the death will involve women and also young men. And that is why, how was such a massive crowd permitted? Why was it not stopped in the first place? That is going to be questioned by this high-level inquiry, which will involve the Divisional Commissioner and the ADGP. Also, Nabila, just adding another point here, that New Year, and this time is usually the time the crowd tends to swell at the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine.
Right.
And therefore, it was not exactly unexpected that administration was not caught by surprise. So that is why what happened, what went wrong will need to be now investigated. Over to you,
Absolutely.
Nabila.
Pooja, thank you very much for joining us with those perspectives. I'm going to cut across to Sunilji Bhatt, who's right there on ground with some of the devotees right behind him. Sunil, I'm going to cut straight to you. Please take us through the sentiments of those devotees who are present there behind you. Get us reactions on what they have to say, what really resulted in this stampede that's killed 12 people and injured 13.
Well, Nabila, right now I am at the Darshini Deodi in Katra, and here you can see that right now also there is heavy rush of the pilgrims. You can see that many of them have completed their yatra and some are about to undertake the yatra. But see, no social distancing is being maintained. COVID protocols have gone for a toss, and people are blatantly violating the COVID norms here. And the administration has also been, caught by surprise. See the number of devotees who are here. Large number of devotees are here, and most of them are not even
The number of
wearing the
people
mask.
who've shown up, do they have any idea, considering the crowd, people who come in there, Sunilji Bhatt, people who come in for the yatra usually have to take a pass. There's a clear head count. Have authorities drawn out a picture of how many people, how many devotees are present there at the moment, or at least since 12 a.m. over the last few hours, how many people have come in?
मौजूद थे जब भगदड़ मची?
नहीं,
अच्छा, तो अभी भगदड़ के बारे में सुना आपने?
अभी नहीं सुना है।
अच्छा, आप बताइए।
सर, भवन के पास में आपस में भीड़ टकरा गई है वहाँ पर। कुछ भगदड़ की वजह से हो गया। कुछ लोग मारे गए हैं, कुछ लोग चोट लग गई है उनके। मतलब बहुत परेशानी हुई है वहाँ पर। 7 घंटे लाइन में लग के जब मैंने दर्शन किए माता के, मतलब कि बहुत ही।
लेकिन आपको पता है कोविड की महामारी है, उसके बावजूद कोई प्रोटोकॉल का पालन नहीं कर रहे हैं आप लोगों ने। मास्क
ये गलती है।
आप हमारे सामने आप रुमाल बांध रहे हैं,
ये गलती होगी मेरी, मैंने नहीं मतलब मुंह बांध के।
यस
Sunil, we saw that, and we're seeing that clearly. People are, they're insistent on carrying out their yatra despite the COVID threat. But people will come in. It's for the authorities to ensure that they deter overwhelming crowds. There is a limit that should be allowed to gather, considering that we have the Omicron threat, and cities nationwide have imposed strict curbs, night curfews, ban to large gatherings. At a time like this, Mata Vaishno Devi temple have scores of people, overwhelming crowds who have managed to land up right there post the strike of 12 to make their first to pay their first respects as they kick in the New Year. So this was expected. Overwhelming crowds is almost a sight that you see annually on the 1st of January. Midnight, you have scores of people who come by to take their blessings from right there at the holy shrine. Now, knowing very well there should have been added precautions, there should have been added security, there should have been lines that should have been streamlined, passes should have been given in limited quantities, but none of that we see as protocols or measures that are taken by the shrine's administration. Have the local administration there taken responsibility for this laxity?
Well, Nabila, a high-level inquiry has been ordered into this incident, and as you said that more number of yatris managed to reach the Bhavan area than the permissible limit. Because of the COVID situation, there is a limit that has been set by the Shrine Board, but late last night it seems that more number of yatris had reached the Bhavan area, and unfortunately that led to a stampede in which 12 people were killed. But even now we can see that a large number of devotees are here from across the country, and it seems that there is no checks here, and large number of devotees are being given passes. That's what
right, Sunil,
the devotees have alleged.
We see families around you. We see parents carrying children with them. Families around you. Can you get us a sentiment from some of those parents there who are carrying children in their arms and moving forward with their yatra despite the stampede that was reported? Aren't they deterred? What is their sentiment?
जी, आप बताइए, आप कहाँ से आए हैं?
ऊपर भवन से।
अच्छा, यात्रा आपकी हो गई?
हाँ जी।
तो आप मुझे बताइए कि जब भगदड़ मची आप वहीं थे?
हाँ हाँ।
अच्छा, क्या हुआ वहाँ पे? क्या हुआ वहाँ?
बहुत ज़्यादा भीड़ थी, वो बहुत ज़्यादा इकट्ठे हुए पड़े थे। हाँ।
आपके हाथ में मासूम बच्चा है, ये मतलब कितनी स्थिति भयावह थी उस समय?
बहुत ज़्यादा धक्का मुक्की बहुत ज़्यादा हो रही थी। अच्छा। हाँ, वो बोल भी रहे थे लाइन में आओ। हाँ।
फिर क्या हुआ? आपने कैसे जान बचाई अपने बच्चों की?
हम तो वही साइड पे हो गए थे, वो जनता मानती नहीं है, धक्का मुक्की
नहीं, वहाँ जो प्रशासन था ना, उन्होंने बैरिकेड्स बंद कर दिए थे।
आप बताइए।
हम तो बिल्कुल सही सलामत दर्शन हुए महामाई के, बहुत बढ़िया दर्शन हुए।
कोविड के प्रोटोकॉल का पालन
नहीं किया बिल्कुल।
आप तो बिना मास्क
अभी धरा है।
अभी क्या आप देखिए भीड़ कितनी है, मतलब थोड़ी गंभीरता दिखानी है ना। अगर आपको पता है कोविड की महामारी का खतरा है, आप भीड़ में घूम रहे हैं, मास्क नहीं है,
अभी धरा है।
जी, आप बताइए कि आपके साथ कौन कौन आया?
हम सब इकट्ठे ही हैं, मैं, मेरे बच्चे मेरे।
Still, if you can ask them, who are the kind of people who got caught up in that stampede? We hear that women and children were among the few who may have been injured. It's unfortunate to even think what may have happened.
वो मेन रास्ता तो बंद कर दिया था रात को 2 बजे।
तो मुझे बताइए लोग इसमें कैसे फंस गए? ये स्टैम्पीड जो है कैसे हो, भगदड़ मची कैसे?
रास्ता बंद करने की
रास्ता बंद करने की वजह से बहुत ज्यादा पब्लिक बहुत ज्यादा हो गई थी, भगदड़ बहुत ज्यादा मच गई थी, इसलिए ऊपर लाठी चार्ज भी किया था रात को उन्होंने।
रास्ता किसने रोका था?
पब्लिक ने।
अच्छा।
हाँ।
तो क्या हुआ कैसे, जरा विस्तार से बताइए।
ये दसेगा भरा के दस दे विस्तार से।
बताइए, आप बताइए क्या
हुआ क्या था? कल न्यू ईयर मतलब नए साल था, जो 31 था, उसकी वजह से ज़्यादा पब्लिक आई थी। तो टाइम था 6 से 8 बजे का टाइम था, तो उन्होंने क्या करा, पट बंद कर दिए थे 6 बजे। 8 बजे पट खोले, फिर 7:30 बजे पट खोले। 7:30 बजे के 11 के समथिंग उस टाइम पे मैं था। 7:30 बजे मतलब मेरे परिवार भी वहीं पर था, तो उन्होंने दर्शन किए। तो उस टाइम पे उन्होंने 10:30 बजे जो पट बंद किए ना, उन्होंने 10:30 बजे एकदम जो पब्लिक आई, जो मेन रास्ता जैसे इस साइड का मतलब 40 फीट का रास्ता रहता है, जो मतलब पब्लिक उस रास्ते से निकलती है, तो उन्होंने क्या करा, उस रास्ते पे बैरिकेड्स लगा के ना कि उस रास्ते से निकालते हुए एक जरासी मतलब 15 फीट का रास्ता था।
So Nabila, you can see that the Yatris are saying that situation went out of control post midnight, and suddenly there was, heavy rush of the pilgrims, and the entire Yatra track got blocked. The administration tried its level best to control the situation, but unfortunately a stampede occurred in which 12 people lost their lives.
Well, it's unpardonable, Sunilji Bhatt. Thank you very much for giving us those reactions. Sunilji Bhatt, the only reporter joining us live from Vaishno Devi, India today, closely tracking those developments. It's highly unfortunate that you had overwhelming crowds, not adequate security. Clearly, security officials there have failed to ensure that crowds follow protocols and ensure that they're streamlined here. Clearly, because of some kind of miscommunication, many of them were let in without passes. People there barging into the Vaishno Devi Bhavan eventually clashed with those devotees who were waiting for hours, and then led to an argument and then a stampede that's killed 12 people. A lot of the rescue relief operations that have just ended now, and finally the Yatra has been allowed to resume after a brief suspension. We're going to continue tracking these developments, but for now it's a wrap on this edition of